So this month, or November, if this is no longer November when this reaches you, I took a break from social media. I turned off Instagram and Facebook. Mostly Instagram has been the dominating force in my life. I deleted it off my phone. And yeah, it's been a beautiful experiment in stepping away from something that is really addicting by nature and pulls me outside of the present moment, pulls me out of myself. And the first thing that I noticed was when I sat down to take a dump for the first time with Instagram off of my phone. I opened my phone and I went to where Instagram used to be and panicked. Jokingly, I panicked. I texted my partner in that moment being like, what do I do with myself now? I need someone to talk to. Because how many of us are just ingrained in the habit of pulling out our phone and doing something when we were sitting down on the toilet? And the concept that has brought up for me is the fact that we really struggle to shit with ourselves. We really struggle to sit with ourselves in general, but especially on the potty when we are really just with ourselves in the most intimate possible way. And yet we so frequently, if not all the time, turn to a distraction to, make it easier, to make dopamine more prominent a part of the equation. And yet this is, I've noticed, such a detrimental thing to our health and well-being, because we, in struggling to sit with ourselves, also perpetuate that theme in all areas of our life. So, how we do one thing, we do everything. And so if we are struggling to sit with ourselves in the present moment, with what we're feeling, with our bodies, with our minds, with our anxieties, with all the things that come with being a human, if we are unable to sit with ourselves and be with that, well, we just distract and repress it. We just avoid it. We have to cover it up with addictions. And when we are left with ourselves, we really struggle to grapple with the intensity of that feeling of having to shit with ourselves. And I've noticed that the compulsion does not go away just because social media is there. So now I, still find myself like flipping through my phone, like looking at tag, like there's really nothing to really be done, but it's a distraction. And I found myself pouring myself more into my work. And the great thing is that I spent less time just, losing my fucking mind on social media. But there's that void that's still looking to be felt, that discomfort with the self that is typically covered up in some way, shape, or form, that I think exists, I know exists in all of us. And so, for me, the insight has come through putting social media down and just noticing how I show up on the potty with myself. And so that's a silly example. My roommate's here speaking, distracting me. I've been distracted, but in a different context. Okay, coming back to the point here. So I feel like we've made some good progress. I'm going to lose this one. I'm not going to be lost to perfectionism. Oh, poor YouTube not having the best lighting and sound. That's okay. Okay, back to the topic at hand. Yeah, so the general commentary, off the potty, is that this culture of distraction is really detrimental to us because we need to be with ourselves. We need to learn to be with ourselves. We need to be aware of ourselves, because this is the only way we can be truly happy. If we can't sit with what is, we can't make positive changes. We can't choose things that are healthy for us. We can't grow. We can't heal. Awareness is half the battle. It's the first step to being able to create the dream life that we want on the inside and on the outside. And so, you know, my way of looking at things is always like, let's thrive, let's flourish. Like, I'm not looking for status quo. I'm not looking to settle for decent. I'm looking for an encouraging, let's fucking go, fuck yes energy for all of us. And in order to do that, we have to learn to be with ourselves. We have to bring awareness to and create space to our current state of being. And not in a judgmental way. And I think a lot of us go through that initially, you know, those who are on a journey of building self-awareness, whether it's through meditation or yoga or journaling or whatever it is, therapy, we definitely go through that self-critical sort of phase where we can become aware of things, but we're judging it. The next step, perhaps if you're looking at that in a linear fashion, is to remove that self-critical voice and learn to be with ourselves with acceptance. And that means not just being with the self-critical voice, but also being with the hard emotions, being with the anxiety, being with the discomfort, and being present in the moment. And so when we're sitting on the toilet, it can be tough for us in this day and age to just sit with ourselves, to just sit with our bodies, sit with all the thinking that we're doing, sit with whatever emotions are present. You know, you think about that midday poop you have at work. You know, you're probably stressed out. You're probably thinking about work and struggling to turn off. And so, yeah, we don't want to sit with that. We want to distract ourselves from that. But that habit then causes the pattern of repression, of pushing it all down and letting it rule us underneath the surface. And then we're run by our autopilot brain. And yeah, I think we can all be honest that doesn't really get us where we want to go, you know? It tends to systemically create and experience an existence of self-criticism, of self-sabotage, you know, and not that we're all, you know, maniacs out of our conditioning. Like, there are plenty of good things that we, you know, get conditioned with. But I think, you know, ultimately the conversation is how do we, you know, grow out of dumpy conditioning and recondition, relearn how to relate to ourselves, how to relate to the world around us in ways that actually bring us peace and happiness and joy and fulfillment and purpose and all the great things that we are capable of feeling, but do not feel if we're living unconsciously, if we're living out patterns that, you know, came from trauma and wounding as young people and throughout our lives. If we're ruled by these patterns, you know, happiness is elusive. And so the first step to being able to change any of these patterns and create new relationships to the world around us, to ourselves, is to become aware of it. We have to sit with it. We have to be able to breathe through it, accept and acknowledge that it's here, and love it. You got to love yourself. You got to love that self-critical voice. You have to love the anxiety that you feel. You have to love the stress that you feel. And there's this beautiful dynamic that I want to end with, and that's this dialectic, this paradox, this balance, this seesaw of acceptance and change, which can be looked at as two opposing forces, and yet they are built around each other and are necessary aspects of one another. And so we need them in balance. We need to have a growth mindset in equal proportion to self-acceptance. If we have too much self-acceptance and not enough of a growth mindset, of a desire for healthy change, well, we just accept the shitty parts of our lives. We just let ourselves suffer and we just let that go. If we have too much of a change attitude, we're never enough. We're too critical. We're constantly striving and never able to be present with what is and appreciate the good in ourselves. We have to find a balance in between the two. We have to accept where we're at and love ourselves fully and want and acknowledge that we can be better, feel better. We have to challenge the highest good and the highest potential in ourselves. And so that acceptance piece is really what I'm speaking to, is if we want to change, if we want to fulfill our potential, if we want to live our best lives, if we want to be truly sustainably happy, it starts with acceptance. It starts with being able to be with yourself, being able to be with the hard feelings, being able to be with the thought cycles that bring us down, and learning through loving presence to accept them as they are in the moment and basically disengage ourselves from them such that we can choose something different. When we bring that loving energy, when we bring presence and acceptance, when we can shit with ourselves, anything's possible. We become the creative masters of our own mind, of our own worlds, of our own inner worlds, and thus mostly of our outer worlds. But if we're playing on our phone anytime we are, sitting with ourselves and could be just being present with ourselves, we're continuing to push things down, and those things will continue to rule us under the surface. So at the end of the day, I'm not saying not to use your phone when you're pooping, but just, some food for thought. If we cannot be with ourselves and be with ourselves without stimulation or distraction, we're going to be ruled by the autopilot brain and mind. And, again, we can all be honest that doesn't always give us the joy and the happiness that we want in our lives. It can cause a lot of pain and suffering that we don't need to necessarily feel. So, I encourage you to shit with yourself. Put your phone down. See what happens. See what you feel. You will feel uncomfortable. Like I feel anxious. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. I wish I had something to distract me. And breathe through it and recognize that you can be with yourself fully. You, as a whole human being with the vast spectrum of experiences across the sensations that we have and the emotions that we feel and the stories and the language that we have going on in our head, you can sit with all of it. It's possible to be with all of it. And when we do that, we empower ourselves to create our destiny. Yeah, and that's what it always comes back to for me is I want to live an awesome life. I want to be happy. I want to feel good as much as possible. And that means being able to be present with the feeling good, but also present with the not feeling so good. And again, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if I can't be present with my pain, I cannot be present with my happiness. So the encouragement here is to pay attention. Can I be with myself? How often do I reach for distractions? Where are the flashpoints for me to reach for those and maybe turn away from being present with myself and accepting where I'm at and what I'm feeling? And what sort of things can ground you and connect you with yourself? For me, it's stretching, journaling, listening to music, without texting, without being like doing something else, so like actually being present, listening with music, meditation. I don't know if I said that, but I always say that. It's very possible to sit on a bus without being on your phone and just be present, sitting. It's very possible to do the things that we tend to want to fill that sort of anxiety with a distraction. It's very possible to do things just being with ourselves. And when we practice that, it brings us a lot of power, personal power back to ourselves. Because instead of feeding the tendency to avoid, we lean into the discomfort and we see that we are very capable of handling it. Okay, that's it. Love you. Mwah. Bye.